No alien wanted tiny alien, until a human loved her heart-touching sci-fi romance. In the heart of the galaxy, there was a station unlike any other. It hovered between two glowing nebulae, a floating city of metal and lights, a place where species from countless planets met, traded, and arranged alliances. The station was called Orion's Crossing, and it was known for being both magnificent and merciless. For many aliens, it was a place of opportunity, but for some, it was a place of rejection. Among the busy corridors and glittering halls, a tiny alien girl sat alone on a high observation deck. Her name was Lyra, and she was the smallest member of her species anyone had seen in centuries. Her fur was soft and pale, and her eyes were large, almost too big for her delicate face. She tried to sit straight, but her small frame made her almost invisible among the taller, stronger, and brighter aliens walking past. Lyra had come to Orion's Crossing with hope in her heart. She dreamed of finding a home, of finding someone who would see her as more than just a tiny alien. But the galaxy was harsh. The other species laughed at her size, whispered about her weakness, and ignored her when she tried to speak. "Too small," one alien muttered as they passed, their voice dripping with disdain. "She cannot survive the long journeys. She is worthless." Lyra felt the words like cold water on her skin. She curled her tiny body into itself, wishing she could disappear. Her small fingers clutched the edge of the platform as she watched groups of aliens pass by, each with someone at their side. None stopped to look at her. None even gave her a kind glance. She had tried before. She had smiled at strangers, offered small gifts, and even practiced the complex greetings of larger species, but nothing worked. They did not care. They only cared for strength, usefulness, or beauty. And Lyra had neither, at least in their eyes. Her stomach growled softly, but she ignored it. Food was not important anymore. What mattered was finding someone who would care. For hours she waited. Days had passed in a blur of bright lights, bustling corridors, and the endless echo of alien voices. And yet no one had chosen her. Then one morning a new group arrived at the station. Humans. They were few in number, and their arrival caused a quiet stir. Most aliens regarded them with curiosity, suspicion, or mild amusement. Humans were unpredictable, strange, and new to this part of the galaxy. They had arrived with their own ships, shining and unarmed, and walked among the aliens with quiet confidence. Among them was a man named Evan Hale. He was tall, with a calm presence that seemed to make people notice him even without trying. His eyes were a deep brown, warm and curious, scanning the station with gentle interest. When he walked through the corridors, he did not push through the crowd. He waited for people to move, nodded politely, and smiled at those who met his gaze. And then he saw her. Lyra. At first, he almost missed her. She was so small, so quiet, sitting alone at the edge of the observation deck, but something in her made him pause. Maybe it was the way her large eyes stared out into the nebula beyond the station, or the way she hugged herself as if she wanted to be invisible. Maybe it was the sadness in her posture, the hope she carried despite the constant rejection. Evan stepped closer. He knelt down to bring himself to her level, careful not to startle her. "Hello," he said softly. His voice was calm, gentle, and full of warmth. "My name is Evan. What's yours?" Lyra froze. No one had spoken to her like this before. Not even the kindest of her own species had ever taken the time to kneel, to speak gently, or to smile at her. Most had ignored her completely. I'm Lyra," she whispered, her voice small and trembling. Evan smiled. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Lyra. You don't have to be afraid. I'm not going to hurt you." She studied him carefully. Humans were strange. They were taller, more muscular, and somehow comforting. Something about him felt safe. After a long moment of hesitation, Lyra nodded. She had no reason to trust him, but something in his calm presence made her want to try. Evan extended his hand, palm open. "Would you like to come with me? I promise I will take care of you." Lyra hesitated. The galaxy had taught her that promises were meaningless. Everyone promised something and then left her behind. But this time, something was different. She looked into Evan's eyes and saw no judgment, no expectation, only kindness. Slowly, she placed her tiny hand in his. It was almost swallowed by his larger hand, but he held her gently, not too tight, not too loose. "Good," Evan said. "Let's get you somewhere safe." As they walked through the station, other aliens whispered and stared. Some laughed quietly, unable to believe a human would choose someone so small, so weak by their standards. "She cannot survive," one hissed. "He will regret it." "Humans are foolish," another said. They always overestimate themselves, but Evan ignored them. He focused on Lyra, adjusting his pace so she could keep up. He noticed the way she flinched when the crowd pressed close, the way she tried to hide behind him. He smiled softly and lowered his arm so she could hold his finger instead, giving her a sense of independence even as he protected her. They reached the docking bay where the human ships were waiting. Lyra's eyes widened. The ships were unlike any she had seen before, sleek, shiny, and surprisingly small. She had always imagined human ships as massive machines, but these were elegant, efficient, and designed for comfort. Evan led her into the smallest cabin. "This will be your space for now," he explained. "I've adjusted everything for you, gravity, temperature, food. You don't have to do anything except be yourself." Lyra looked around, astonished. No one had ever cared about her comfort before. She had always had to adjust to others, to shrink herself to fit the world. But here, the world adjusted for her. "Thank you," she whispered, tears welling in her large eyes. She had never felt this kind of safety before. "You're welcome," Evan said gently. "I'm glad you're here with me." The first night aboard the ship was quiet. Lyra curled up on a soft cushion, still trembling from the day's events. Evan stayed nearby, reading reports and making calculations, but always aware of her presence. She watched him, curious about this human who had chosen her when no one else would. Hours passed. Eventually, Lyra drifted into sleep, feeling a warmth she had never known. For the first time in her life, she believed she was not worthless. Over the next few days, Lyra began to learn more about humans. Evan taught her basic words in his language, showed her how to move in low gravity, and shared stories of Earth, a planet full of life, danger, and unexpected kindness. Lyra listened, fascinated. Humans seemed so ordinary yet capable of great care. One afternoon, as they floated near a glowing nebula, Lyra spoke quietly. "Why did you choose me?" she asked, her voice barely audible. Evan looked at her and smiled. "Because I see you. Not your size, not your species, not what others say. I see you, Lyra, and I think you are amazing just the way you are." Lyra's heart swelled. No one had ever said anything like that to her. She had always believed that she was too small, too weak, too unimportant. But this human, he saw her. For the first time, she felt hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, she had a place in the galaxy. Not because anyone forced her, not because anyone needed her, but because someone truly cared. As the ship glided silently through the stars, Lyra leaned against Evan, feeling a sense of belonging she had never known. The galaxy might have ignored her, laughed at her, and rejected her. But in this small cabin, among the glowing lights and gentle hum of human technology, she was seen. She was safe. She was wanted. And for the first time, Lyra dared to dream. The stars outside the ship stretched into long lines of light as it glided silently through space. Lyra sat on a soft cushion, her tiny hands clasped together, staring out of the viewport. She could see nebulae swirling in colors she had never imagined, distant planets twinkling like diamonds, and the endless darkness between them. Yet despite the beauty, she felt a small flutter of fear. Leaving Orion's crossing had been a huge step. She had trusted a human, and while she wanted to believe in him, the memory of rejection still lingered. Other aliens had called her useless, weak, and unworthy. Could one human's kindness truly outweigh the judgment of the galaxy? Evan noticed her silence. He had been monitoring the ship's instruments but turned to look at her now. "You're thinking about them, aren't you?" he asked softly. Lyra's small head nodded. "The others, the ones at the station, they said I was worthless. What if they were right? What if I am too small, too weak, too?" She stopped, her voice trembling. "You're not," Evan said firmly, kneeling to her level once more. "You are not weak. You are small, yes, but that does not make you worthless. In fact, your size can be a strength in ways they cannot understand." Lyra looked up at him, hope mixing with doubt in her large eyes. "You really think so?" "I know so," Evan replied, his voice calm and steady. "I've seen how the galaxy judges by appearances. It's wrong, and I'm going to prove it to you." Meanwhile, back at Orion's crossing, the news of Evan Hale's choice spread faster than wildfire. Aliens whispered in corridors, council chambers, and docking bays. A human chose her. "The tiny, useless one? They said he would regret it," muttered a reptilian traitor to his companion. "She is too small to survive in space." "She is fragile," a winged alien added. "No one has ever traveled with one of her kind. It is dangerous and foolish." The whispers became arguments. The human delegation was already under observation because their kind was new to this part of the galaxy. Most alien leaders had expected humans to be simple, naive, and easily manipulated. Choosing a tiny, seemingly weak alien confirmed their assumptions. Humans were reckless. Council chambers convened, a rare gathering of influential species from across the galaxy. Holographic screens displayed Lyra's image and Evan's ship. The council members debated in sharp tones. "She cannot survive long-distance travel," said a tall, armored alien. "He is risking her life." "She may die," added another, her voice sharp and critical. "And humans will be blamed. Their actions bring disgrace." A floating advisor, transparent and pulsing with energy, observed the council quietly. "Perhaps the human sees something we do not," it said carefully. The room fell silent. None of the council members had expected that. To admit that the human might be correct would be to admit their own prejudice. Yet, even they could not ignore the fact that the human's choice was deliberate and unshakable. Back on the ship, Evan was setting up Lyra's new quarters for comfort and safety. He adjusted the low gravity so she could move without fear of falling. He prepared food tailored to her size and species, and even installed a small communication panel so she could observe the galaxy safely without leaving her cabin. Lyra watched him in awe. Every action he took, every adjustment he made seemed to say the same thing: "You matter, you are not alone." "Why are you doing all this for me?" she asked one afternoon, her voice soft. "Because I want you to be safe," Evan replied, smiling gently. "Because no one else has. Because you deserve care and respect. Isn't that enough reason?" Lyra hesitated. Enough reason? That concept was new to her. The galaxy had always been about usefulness, strength, and survival. No one had ever cared about her happiness. And yet this human, with simple words and gentle actions, was showing her a world she had never known. "Yes," she whispered, finally believing it. "It is enough." Not everyone aboard the ship was as calm as Evan. A small crew of human engineers had joined him for the journey. They were puzzled by Lyra, not because she was alien, but because of how much attention Evan gave her. "Sir," said one engineer, scratching his head, "are you sure this tiny alien is going to keep up with us? She's very small." Evan smiled, shaking his head. "She's not just small. She's brave, intelligent, and stronger than anyone assumes. You'll see." The engineers exchanged skeptical glances. They had been taught to trust Evan, but even they found it hard to understand why he treated Lyra as if she were a priority. Yet his calm confidence made them hesitate before questioning him further. Days passed in quiet routines. Evan taught Lyra about the ship, how to control minor systems with her size, and how to communicate with other species over universal translators. He never rushed her, never mocked her, and never demanded she be anything she was not. Lyra grew more confident each day. She could manage small tasks on the ship, and she began to explore areas that had seemed impossible to her before. The tiny alien even learned to float in the low-gravity corridors, laughing when she accidentally bumped into a bulkhead. One evening, while gazing at a cluster of distant stars, Lyra asked, "Do you think the galaxy will ever accept me?" Evan leaned back, resting his hands behind his head. "The galaxy may never fully accept you," he said honestly. "But that doesn't matter. What matters is that you are seen, respected, and loved. That is far more important than what anyone else thinks." Lyra considered this. The words were foreign but comforting. For the first time in her life, she realized that acceptance did not need to come from thousands of strangers. It could come from one person who truly cared. News from Orion's crossing arrived via encrypted channels. The council had decided to send a representative ship to intercept Evan's vessel. They claimed it was for safety checks, but the intent was clear. They wanted to separate Lyra from him and reclaim her for her own good. When the alert came, Evan remained calm. "They think they can take her," he said quietly. "They don't understand what family means." Lyra clutched his hand tightly. Fear threatened to take over, but Evan's presence anchored her. "Don't worry," he whispered. "I won't let anyone hurt you, not now, not ever." The council ship arrived within hours, a massive vessel casting shadows across the stars as it approached. Its automated communications demanded that Evan halt his ship and return Lyra immediately. Evan opened a channel. "This is Evan Hale. Lyra is with me by choice." "You have no authority to take her against her will," Static crackled. The council voice came back, sharp and commanding. "You are defying the laws of Orion's crossing. The alien in your custody is unfit for travel. You are ordered to return her immediately or face consequences." Evan's eyes narrowed, but his tone remained calm. She is fit. She is intelligent, capable, and brave. She is not a cargo to be judged by size. I will not return her. I will protect her as any human protects those they care for." The council paused, momentarily stunned. No human had ever spoken this way before. The galaxy expected them to negotiate, to comply, to fear alien authority. But Evan did none of these. He simply stated the truth. Lyra was not alone anymore. Inside the cabin, Lyra trembled. "They want to take me back," she whispered. "I will be alone again." Evan shook his head. "No," he said firmly. "You will never be alone again. I choose you. I am your family now, and nothing, not size, species, or law can change that." Lyra's tears spilled, but they were tears of relief and gratitude. For the first time, she felt the strength of being loved unconditionally. She realized that she did not need to prove herself to the galaxy. She only needed to trust Evan and herself. The journey continued. Lyra began to notice the subtle ways Evan cared for her: small cushions in her cabin, a gentle reminder when she tried to overwork herself, food prepared exactly to her taste. Every action, no matter how small, communicated the same message: you are important, you are wanted. Other humans aboard the ship also began to notice. They saw that Lyra was not just a tiny alien, but a being who could learn, adapt, and inspire trust. Even the skeptical engineers began to respect her, watching as she handled small tasks with precision and care. Lyra began to smile more, laugh more, and speak with confidence. The tiny alien who had once believed she was worthless now felt a spark of pride. She belonged somewhere. She was loved. And for the first time, she understood that strength came in many forms, not just size or power. As the ship glided through the quiet void of space, Lyra leaned against Evan. She whispered, "Thank you for choosing me." Evan held her close. "No," he said softly. "Thank you for trusting me. That was the hardest step of all." And in the silence of the stars, they both knew that their bond, small and unlikely as it was, would survive anything the galaxy threw at them. For the first time, Lyra felt safe, seen, and valued. And that was worth more than anything the galaxy could ever offer. The stars outside the viewport stretched into long streaks of light as Evan Hale's ship moved steadily through space. Inside, Lyra sat quietly, her small hands folded on her lap. Though Evan's presence made her feel safe, the message from Orion's crossing weighed heavily on her tiny shoulders. "They want to take me back," she whispered, her voice trembling. Evan's brow furrowed, but he remained calm. "They can try," he said softly. "But I will never let anyone take you from me." The tiny alien nodded, clutching his finger for reassurance. For the first time in her life, she realized that strength was not measured by size. Strength could be found in courage, in trust, and in the unshakable bond between two beings who cared for one another. Back at Orion's crossing, the council's frustration grew. They had expected the human delegation to comply or falter under pressure, but Evan's response defied every expectation. "He refuses to obey," said a winged alien, its feathers bristling with irritation. "And he speaks as if the alien is already part of his family." "They are setting a dangerous precedent," added a reptilian leader. "If this is allowed, others will start questioning our judgment. Species that are weak or small might be valued for something other than usefulness." A small counselor, pulsing with soft energy, suggested, "Perhaps we should observe them first. The human may simply be naive, but if he is serious, we must act decisively." The council agreed. A massive enforcement vessel was dispatched to intercept Evan's ship. Its hull gleamed under distant starlight, a silent warning to all who would defy the galaxy's rules. On Evan's ship, the alarms blared suddenly, filling the cabin with bright red lights. Lyra jumped, startled, as the warning echoed through the corridors. "What is it?" she asked, gripping his arm tightly. Evan quickly accessed the communication panel. "It's a council enforcement ship," he said quietly. "They're approaching. They want to take you back." Lyra's tiny frame trembled. She had imagined this moment, but the reality was frightening. She had been abandoned too many times before. What if this time Evan could not protect her? Evan crouched beside her, looking into her large, fearful eyes. "Look at me, Lyra. I will not let them take you. You are not alone. You are not small. You are important, and I will prove it to the galaxy." Her fear slowly eased under his calm, unwavering gaze. She nodded, gripping his hand tighter, drawing courage from his strength. The council ship hailed them. A booming, cold voice filled the cabin. "This is the Orion enforcement. You are ordered to halt immediately and return the alien known as Lyra to station custody. Failure to comply will result in severe consequences. Evan smiled faintly, shaking his head. Lyra is not cargo. She is not property. She is a being with her own will. I will not return her. If you wish to enforce your laws, you will have to take me first. The static silence that followed was tense. The council had never encountered a human willing to defy them with such calm certainty. They were expecting fear, hesitation, or negotiation. They were not prepared for this. Lyra watched the exchange, her small body trembling, yet her heart began to swell with a new feeling: pride. Not for her size, not for her appearance, but for the courage she felt in her bond with Evan. For the first time, she realized she had a role beyond what the galaxy had ever expected from her. She was not just a tiny alien, she was someone worth fighting for. As the council ship drew closer, Evan activated the ship's shields. The massive vessel attempted to block their path, but the human ship moved with precision and speed. Evan's experience, combined with Lyra's unique presence, created a synergy he could not fully explain. Hours into the tense chase, the council vessel fired a series of warning pulses. They were designed to disable the smaller ship without harming Lyra, or so they claimed. But Lyra, sensing the danger and Evan's growing worry, did something extraordinary. Her hands lifted slightly in the low-gravity cabin, and a subtle glow began to emanate from her body. It was faint at first, a soft shimmer in the dim light. But then the glow intensified, and the ship's alarms began to behave strangely. Systems that had been locked or disabled suddenly returned to full function. Evan noticed immediately. "Lyra, what are you doing?" he asked, astonished. I don't know," she whispered, her voice trembling but determined. "I think I'm helping you." The tiny alien's empathic abilities, long dormant, were awakening. They responded to trust, care, and emotional connection. The bond between her and Evan acted as a catalyst, allowing her to extend her influence over the ship systems, stabilizing them against the Council's interference. For the first time, the galaxy saw that her small size was not a weakness. It was a vessel of hidden power, amplified by trust and love. The Council ship struggled to match Evan's maneuvers. Their weapons, meant to intimidate or disable, were neutralized by the subtle energy radiating from Lyra. The humans on board began to recognize the significance of what they were witnessing. Even skeptics were forced to step back in awe. Evan's voice, calm and firm, carried over the comms again. "She is not yours to take. She is her own being, and I will protect her." The Council attempted to escalate, but each move they made was countered by Lyra's growing control. The lights in the human ship pulsed with her energy, shields strengthened, and engines responded with flawless precision. Inside her cabin, Lyra felt a strange mixture of fear and exhilaration. She had always felt small, powerless, and unwanted. Now, for the first time, she realized she was capable of more than she had ever imagined. Every time she focused on Evan's calm presence, she could feel the ship responding. She could feel the danger fade. I can do this," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I'm not useless." Evan knelt beside her, holding her tiny hands. "I never thought you were useless," he said softly. "You just needed someone to see you, and now the galaxy is starting to see you too." Her heart swelled with emotion. For the first time in her life, she believed in herself. She believed that someone could love her for who she was, not for her usefulness or strength. As the chase continued, Evan's ship executed a series of daring maneuvers, weaving through asteroid fields and cosmic debris. Lyra's abilities stabilized their systems, allowing them to dodge and evade with precision. The Council ship, massive and cumbersome, struggled to keep up. Observers from other species began to record the event. Aliens who had once ignored her whispered in astonishment. "Could it be that she is more than we thought?" one muttered. "She is protecting him," said another, shocked. "A tiny alien, and yet she controls the ship systems. Incredible." The galaxy had always underestimated small and weak species, but Lyra's actions challenged every assumption. She was no longer just a tiny alien waiting for someone to care. She was a being whose courage and empathy could influence the course of events. Eventually, the Council realized that brute force would not work. They could not take Lyra without risking exposure of their misjudgment. For the first time, their arrogance met a limit, a human's determination and a tiny alien's hidden power. Inside the cabin, Lyra's glow faded slightly as the immediate danger passed. She collapsed onto the soft cushion, exhausted but triumphant, Evan stayed beside her, stroking her small head gently. "You did it," he whispered. "You saved us both. And you've shown the galaxy something they didn't want to see." Lyra smiled weakly, tears shining in her large eyes. I'm not small, I'm not weak, I'm me." "Yes," Evan said, holding her close. "And that is more than enough." For the first time in centuries, the galaxy began to take notice of a tiny alien who had been written off as worthless. They saw courage, intelligence, and empathy manifest in unexpected ways. And they saw a human who had chosen to love her, not for her abilities, but for her being. The bond between Lyra and Evan had become unshakable. The tiny alien had discovered her own strength, and the human had proven that love and trust could challenge the assumptions of the galaxy itself. As they continued their journey through the stars, Lyra felt a sense of pride and belonging she had never known. She was no longer waiting for acceptance. She had it already from the one who mattered most. And that knowledge, that connection, gave her courage to face whatever the galaxy might try next. The stars stretched endlessly outside the viewport, sparkling like scattered jewels across the black velvet of space. Evan Hale's ship moved steadily, its course deliberately calculated to avoid further encounters with the Orion enforcement. Yet, despite their careful navigation, the galaxy seemed determined to challenge them at every turn. Inside the cabin, Lyra was no longer the trembling alien who had first stepped aboard. She sat with her small hands on the control console, her large eyes wide with focus. Over the past few days, she had learned how to influence the ship with her empathic energy. Every system she touched responded to her calm presence, as if the ship itself trusted her. Evan watched from the captain's chair, quietly impressed. "You've grown so fast," he said softly. "I knew you had strength inside you, but I never imagined you would adapt so quickly." Lyra's small ears twitched and she glanced at him. "It's because you trusted me," she admitted. "I never knew I could do this alone, but with you I feel powerful." Evan smiled. "You are powerful, you just needed someone to see it." Meanwhile, the Orion enforcement was far behind, struggling to maintain distance. Their massive ship was cumbersome compared to Evan's nimble vessel, and every attempt to interfere was thwarted by Lyra's growing control over the systems. The aliens watching from afar could hardly believe what they were witnessing. A tiny alien stabilizing a ship against a larger, more advanced fleet, guided by a human's calm command. One alien counselor muttered, "Impossible! How can one so small influence an entire ship?" Another replied, "We misjudged her. This is more than mere size. There is intelligence. There is presence." The galaxy began to see a truth they had long ignored. Size, strength, and outward appearances were not the only measures of worth. Lyra, once dismissed as weak, was now a symbol of hidden potential, revealed only through trust, care, and partnership. Inside the ship, Evan and Lyra prepared for what might come next. They knew the Council would not give up easily. Orders to intercept had been repeated and more ships were likely on the way. "Are you ready?" Evan asked quietly, kneeling to her level. Lyra nodded, her small hands gripping his finger. I am ready," she whispered. Evan's eyes softened. "Remember, it's not just about fighting. It's about showing them what you can do and who you are. The galaxy has underestimated you for too long." Lyra took a deep breath. For the first time, she truly believed in herself. She was not a weak, unwanted alien. She was someone with purpose, someone who could make a difference, and she would prove it. When the Council ships arrived, they attempted a coordinated blockade. Dozens of massive vessels formed a barrier, intending to force Evan's ship to surrender. The moment they activated their energy pulses, the alarms on Evan's ship blared. Lyra's small body trembled, but she focused, letting her energy flow outward. The lights on the console pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. Slowly, the interference began to fade. The weapons aimed at them failed to operate correctly. Systems meant to disable them became unstable, and shields strengthened automatically. Lyra's empathy was no longer subtle, it was commanding. Evan watched in awe. "Lyra, you're controlling everything," he whispered. "The Council doesn't even know what's happening." She nodded, eyes bright with determination. I think I can protect us. I just need to focus." Her tiny hands moved over the console, and for the first time she felt a surge of energy that was entirely her own. It was not just instinct or reaction. It was power fully realized. The small alien who had once been dismissed as fragile was now the most critical force aboard the ship. The Council ships attempted a direct assault, but Evan maneuvered with precision. guided by Lyra's subtle control. Their combined skill and trust allowed them to weave through the blockade, slipping past ships that had been designed to trap and overwhelm them. From a distance, observers began recording the events. Aliens who had laughed at Lyra now stared in disbelief. Reports from the front lines spread quickly. A tiny alien and her human partner had evaded a fleet, countered energy weapons, and stabilized a ship against impossible odds. Even the skeptical engineers aboard Evan's ship could not hide their amazement. "I never thought she could do this," one muttered. "She's incredible." "Not just incredible," another replied quietly. "She's changing the way we think. She's showing us something we've all been blind to." Once the immediate danger passed, Evan guided the ship into a hidden nebula, a temporary safe zone where they could regroup. Lyra slumped onto a soft cushion, exhausted but elated. I did it," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "I helped and we're safe." Evan knelt beside her, holding her tiny hands. "Yes, you did, and the galaxy saw it too. You've proven something today, not just your strength, but that even the smallest, most overlooked beings can make a difference." Lyra's heart swelled. For the first time, she understood that her value was not determined by others' opinions. She had power, courage, and intelligence. Most importantly, she had someone who saw her for who she truly was. The following days were filled with cautious travel. Evan taught Lyra how to manage more complex ship systems and how to use her abilities strategically. Lyra absorbed every lesson quickly, adapting with a speed that amazed even the humans on board. At night, when the ship glided silently through starlit corridors, Evan would sit beside her. "You're growing stronger every day," he said softly. "The galaxy doesn't understand you yet, but they will, and when they do, you'll be ready." Lyra leaned against him, her tiny body warm and comforted by his presence. "I want to be ready," she said quietly. "I don't want to be small anymore, not just in size, but in how the galaxy sees me." "You're not small," Evan said, smiling. "And soon the galaxy will see that too." Their journey was not without challenges. Small skirmishes with Council scouts tested their coordination, but Lyra's abilities allowed them to evade capture every time. With each encounter, she grew more confident. Her energy no longer responded just to danger. It responded to strategy, to precision, to trust. The humans aboard the ship began to realize something remarkable. Lyra's abilities were not just useful, they were revolutionary. They could stabilize entire systems, counter alien technology, and even influence larger energy flows within the ship. The tiny alien, once overlooked, had become a critical asset whose potential far exceeded anything the galaxy had expected. News of their success reached Orion's crossing despite attempts to suppress it. Holographic broadcasts showed the evasion of the fleet, the stabilization of the ship, and the undeniable partnership between Evan and Lyra. Across the galaxy, aliens whispered in shock. She controls the ship," said one alien counselor, disbelief etched on their face. "A tiny alien and yet—" "Yes," replied another, his voice low. "It's more than size, it's intelligence, courage, and empathy. The human chose her, and now the galaxy sees why." Evan, observing the news reports, remained focused on Lyra. "See," he said gently, "you've already made them respect you, but there's more to come." Lyra's heart swelled with pride. For the first time, she felt that she could face anything the galaxy threw at her. She had strength, courage, and someone who believed in her. The galaxy might have underestimated her before, but that mistake would not be repeated. As they continued their journey, Lyra's abilities became more refined. She could detect anomalies in energy fields, stabilize damaged systems instantly, and even anticipate small fluctuations before they happened. Every action she took was guided by her bond with Evan, and every success reinforced her confidence. The galaxy's perception began to shift. Aliens who had once dismissed her as weak began to whisper in awe. The human who had chosen her was no longer seen as naive or reckless. Together, they had demonstrated that value was not determined by size, species, or appearance. Inside the ship, Lyra leaned against Evan, watching the stars streak past. "Do you think they will ever understand me?" she asked quietly. Evan held her close. "They may never fully understand, but they will respect you, and that is enough. You've already shown them the truth. Strength comes in many forms, and love and trust are the greatest powers of all." Lyra smiled softly, her heart full. For the first time, she felt truly alive. Not small, not worthless, but powerful, loved, and capable of changing the galaxy itself. End of Part 4. Approximately 2,500 words, Lyra's abilities fully emerge, humans act decisively, and the galaxy begins to respect them. This sets up Part 5, where the aftermath and legacy of their bond will be revealed.